On this week's episode, prepare for war in the House of the Dragon. It's a death for G4 again. And is it time to stop collecting sports cards? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do whatever it is that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the Lakers Fast Break, the Happy Hoarder, Humanican Media, and everything that we do to go ahead and make your life better by going ahead and checking out what we're doing today at popculturecosmos.com, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every day. Plus, we're the number one tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook or Meta or whatever it is calling themselves today. Go ahead and check out what we're doing today at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. Plus, go ahead and check out the Happy Hoarder on Facebook. Go ahead and sign up today so you get the latest news and information on all the great deals coming your way in the not too distant future, Humanica Media, and so much more. Please go ahead and check us out today. And if you can do all that, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is our returning man from the borderlands. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.com. The Happy Hoarder, his great shows, the Super BS Games Cast, and of course everything that he is doing today. Of course, for us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, it is my good friend. It is the master and ruler of everything. Congratulations, you suck. Now available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It is Josh Pederson. What's up, man?
What's up? All right, so I'm facing this not a conundrum, but a difficult situation right now. All right, let me
Of
lay
course,
it
my
down
friend.
for you.
Always
Very
here to help.
very rarely does a copy of Final Fantasy, the MSX2 version, pop up on eBay. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
staring at this copy, and it's like it's close to $900, and I'm like, you know, any sane person would not spend this money, but who knows when this is going to appear again, you know? And I'm sitting
Mm-hmm.
there thinking, like, man, I would be a dead man if I bought this, but also I could have buyer's regret for the rest of my life if I don't buy this. It's killing me inside, man. I'm telling you.
Well, if it's going to be that now, maybe not expected at that price in the future. Is the condition on it great? Is it, I
It
don't know.
is. Yeah, it's so this was the original Microsoft version, so it has like 4 floppy disks inside of it,
Mm-hmm.
and they only made so many copies of it.
Is it rated?
It is not graded.
See, if you get it, I would grade it. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know.
All
I don't
right.
know. That's it, man. I just know that the missus would not be happy, you know?
I can tell. Neither would mine. Neither would mine. But you said you wanted to talk a little bit Marvel before we get into today's show, so go for it, my friend.
Yeah, all right. So a couple things here. Like one, it seems like rumor and speculation has been just exploding since the Blade thing happened, with the Blade delay. Not
Mm-hmm.
that any of it really has to do with Blade, but there's so much being discussed right now, and it's hard
Well,
to
that
keep.
that it was reported on the show that they've already changed a few of the movies. In fact, have moved Secret Wars into the next year than it was originally
Mhm.
planned.
Yeah, it's just, and there's so many people saying like, "Oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen." It's hard to keep up with all the hearsay. A few things I'm hearing, like one, there's a Spider-Man 4 already like in the works, and it's supposed to deal with the aftermath of Daredevil Born Again. But that would be weird to me because, as we discussed, the Daredevil series does have quite a few episodes, so something big would have to happen. But why wouldn't they just do that on the big screen, instead of doing a small screen something if something like really huge is going to happen.
Exactly. I don't think you would relate one to the other, especially because that's a Sony property right now, still with
Mhm.
Spider-Man, and of course, you're talking about a Disney Plus property. I'm not sure that they would want to help them, especially the fact because they're in league with Netflix. So it doesn't really make much financial sense for them. I mean,
Yeah.
some tie-overs between the MCU and Spider-Man. Obviously, what we saw with No Way Home and some other times where it's been necessitized. But for the most part, Peter Parker's story remains separate from what's going on in the MCU. Only one needed is he jumping in. So I don't know
Yeah.
stock I can take in that one.
Yeah, a lot of I mean it would be cool because there's a lot of mythology there that could be explored. The other one is there, the season 2 of Moon Knight is coming out and was allegedly like they're from what I'm hearing like they're incorporating like Ghost Rider into it and so I'm just trying to figure out like how would that work?
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs from what I'm seeing, but
Yeah.
the only sure thing we've heard as far as confirmation of anything going on in the MCU is, of course, Harrison Ford, as I
As
said, would
Nicole
be.
Ross. Yeah, you're right on the money for that one.
Yeah, they're not going to touch T'Challa, and rightly so, but they are going to go ahead and replace the actor. The only thing is, I don't expect a long stay for Harrison Ford, and nor should anyone else. I think as soon as he turns into the Red Hulk, it's bye bye for Harrison Ford.
Let's be honest here, though. They have not done a good job at sorry, on the fact of, Black Panther. They have not done a good job at hiding who the new Black Panther is. Like, they could not make
Yeah,
it more painstakingly obvious than it
yeah.
is.
And
Um,
Letitia Wright, I mean, she's very charismatic. She's
yeah.
great at her character, which was kind of puzzling again to me still why that they would go ahead and do that. I was all for, and I've been saying it for years, Lupita Nyong'o. I think she would be perfect as the Black Panther to
She
be.
was the bodyguard, right?
No, that's no. She's the girlfriend. She's the I don't know if they became married, and
Oh,
I'm sure that
that's
what
right.
Wakanda Forever will tell us that. But I believe that she probably would have been a better fit just because of the fact that you got to give her something to do. But that's just
Yeah,
do they give her enough to do in Wakanda Forever? That's what I'm concerned with. That
yeah.
because she's just such a great talent, and Letitia Wright is just so great on her own as as Shuri. I don't know if you really need to go ahead and and put her in the Black
Yeah.
Panther outfit, and
Well,
because I think it takes away from what she's really good at. So,
we'll find out soon, though. I mean, release date's right around the corner. It's November, right? It's November,
yes,
mid-November, I think.
yep, it is just a few weeks away.
Yeah. All right. Final thing I got here. I finally watched the end of She-Hulk. I don't know how I feel about it still. Like I liked the show. It was
Hmm.
a change of pace, is more artistic, and I enjoyed that. But then the ending, it just like it felt like they were trying to make a statement. Like they were, I don't know, they were trying to be meta, I guess, and going against all the trolls, but all at the same time, like highlighting their own issues that like what the trolls were highlighting. I don't know. It's a very weird experience for me that last episode. Like it almost pulled me out. It pretty much it did pull me out of the show.
Well, I feel the exact opposite, to be honest with you. I thought the early episodes were not very good outside of the first episode, which we had talked about was enjoyable for us as far as the banter back and forth between her and Mark Ruffalo. The supposed law comedy, whatever they're trying to do, whether it's all ended up being fake or being played out, it just wasn't good at all. And the first, episodes 2 through 5 or episodes 2 through 6, you can just say was pretty. Actually, I'd say episode 2 through 5 were not that very well constructed. It wasn't until they got to the therapy session I thought it worked okay, and then the I guess the debut of Daredevil in full gear and ready for action. I thought that hit Charlie Cox's presence was actually a good one in there. It just got worked better for me late, and then the last episode I thought it actually clicked for me. She's
Yeah.
meta. She's fourth wall as we've explained before. I think it clicked for me. I know it did, and I know I'm also going to speak to Jeff Sabota from the MCU's Bleeding Edge on Friday's show, PCC Multiverse 300, who's going to have more thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, it was just I don't know, like it took out some early plot lines that they were really like making you cling to, and they
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like scratched them. So I don't know, it felt like it was weird to me. And then they had that like weird Fast and the Furious scene in the end where everyone's at the barbecue and Charlie Cox is there, and
Mm-hmm.
then the Hulk shows up with Scar. And I really hope that that's not what they're gonna make Scar look like, because in the comic books, like Scar is he's like one of my favorite characters because he's savage, you know, like he had to fight for his life on Sakaar, and they just made him look weird and dumb in the show, like nothing like what the comic books look like.
Again, it's leaning towards a World War Hulk scenario, but until they get rid of Universal 100%, they can't go ahead and say it's a World War Hulk scenario. But I have a feeling it's sometime either phase 6 or even phase 7. I think that by that time, Universal, they'll already have relinquished the rights to Hulk and will be able to go ahead and check out a World War Hulk movie at some time.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's probably true. I don't know if it's going to play out like the comic books because, you know, everyone really likes, you know, Bruce Banner for the most part is in control of himself. So in the original World War Hulk, they like launched him off planet. So I don't think that they're going to do that because he's such a beloved character, but you know, who knows? We'll see.
Who knows? We'll see indeed. But what are your thoughts on Marvel and what's going on within the realm of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Please let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, we still have got a lot to talk about on today's show. Let me give you the rundown of what's going on for today. We're going to go ahead and talk about what happened at the box office with Black Adam and Ticket to Paradise. Also, as well, we're going to be talking about the leading Oscar contender dropped this past weekend in the Banshees of Inisherin. So, your thoughts on that? We'll also be talking about the death of G4 that happened last week again. Is this the final time for G4? We'll talk about that. Plus, also as well, a video game roundup with Mario+Rabbids, Sparks of Hope, Persona 5 Royale, and the horrible release of Gotham Knights. We're also going to be talking to Rob Dolby with Game Time Sports Collectibles on the current status and the current state of the sports card market. And also as well, House of the Dragon episode 10. I've got some stuff I want to go ahead and talk about with the season 1 ending episode and all the stuff that's going on, the juicy stuff that's going on with Game of Thrones House of the Dragon. And overall, was it a good watch for me? Plus, also, Josh has thoughts on some Hasbro stuff that happened recently and Hockeyland, a movie that dropped into his lap. What do you think of the movie Hockeyland? We'll go ahead and talk about that on this episode as well. But first, my friend, it is the box office. I wanted to go ahead and talk about Black Adam opening up to 67, close to $70 million here, $70 million here in the U.S. and a little bit over, I want to say, almost $150 million worldwide. Not backflipping per se, but all right, it's a good start. It's his best start ever as a solo star. Your thoughts on Black Adam doing so well? Stranger Than Paradise came up okay, and I'll talk about that in a second. But your thoughts on Black Adam for this weekend?
I don't know. I'm really confused right now because, like, as a you know, I put this on my social media pages earlier. I was like, yeah, the critics hate it, so I'll probably like it. I'm getting even from the average moviegoer though, I'm getting mixed perceptions of it. They're saying they loved The Rock in it, but they don't know if they liked the movie, and that's
Mhm.
what's kind of I don't know. Is it alarming to me, or do you think? Okay, let me first put this question at you. All right,
Mhm.
they have not been coy about the in credit cameo in there, right? So,
Mhm.
do you think that if the movie is bad, do you think that them bringing Superman back is enough to keep people interested in what's going on in the DC universe right now?
Well, they really have no one to steer the ship. Walter Hamada just left, and they've been looking for a replacement for him for quite some time, and they've not been able to find one. They had thought they had one, but unfortunately, that did not work out. So right now you're dealing with a whole lot of this and a whole lot of that. Supposedly there's a Man of Steel 2 on the way. I think right now, again, you still just have a universe that's full of hits and misses with no direction and nothing to tie it all in together. And I still think until Flashpoint comes out with Ezra Miller, I don't know, about ready to be, he's still dealing with court charges at this point in time in regards
Yeah.
to robbery here on the East Coast of the
If he
United
goes to
States.
prison, it won't matter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Things aren't looking good. We had hope that things were looking a little bit better for the DCEU. We thought that there was a time where they could actually go ahead at Comic Con and take hold and take control of the superhero space, but unfortunately that didn't materialize as well. So I don't have much in hope or much to look at or much to expect when it comes to DCEU. I expect some hits and some misses and nothing more.
Yeah, so I'm predicting that Black Adam is probably going to be the last big flop. Because I
Well,
feel
I don't
like
know. I
with
don't know if I don't know if it's a flop per
not a
se. I
flop,
just
but, right now it's sitting at about $26 million, and who knows by the time the weekends for
well,
that's
it's about 70 million. It's going to do
70
70
million,
million
okay.
this weekend.
Yeah,
And it did 140 million wide, which is not huge because the movie cost over 200 million dollars to make, but it's going to probably make what about 500 million dollars maybe right around there before it
yeah.
heads on out.
Yeah, so I mean, not a flop, but I feel like this will be the last, like, movie that people are unsure about. The last, like, shaky film that they're going to do because this was the last thing that the old Warner Brothers
Yeah,
regiment put together. And it even sounds like this was split between like the old and the new. They like there was confrontation during the making of this.
yeah,
Even like The Rock has been very vocal about that. That might have had a big, big effect on what ultimately came out in the film.
yeah.
So I'm thinking that from this point forward, we're either going to get really good movies or really bad movies. There won't be any like middle of the road type stuff. So,
Well, I mean, we're going to get Aquaman 2. We're going to get the Joker 2. I'm sure the
mhm,
Batman will be returning in some form or fashion as far as the Robert Pattinson
yeah.
one. So, yeah,
Well,
could be.
they did a bunch of reshoots on The Flash and
Surprise,
Aquaman,
surprise.
2, which happened recently. So, maybe they're trying to right whatever wrongs they were doing, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting on the path forward. I know that a lot of people are stoked to see Superman back in the movies because this is something people have been clamoring for so long, and even looking at like the Zack Snyder's Justice League, you see people have been wanting that for so long, and it was very successful. Say what you want about what the original cut looked like when the fans wanted something and they delivered it. Like it was very good. So with Superman coming back, this opens all kinds of avenues, and it shows that much like Marvel, they're listening to the fans. And I think that even though Black Adam might not be that good, it still goes to show it. This is a big step for Warner Brothers saying like, "Hey, we hear you and we care."
And I know Black Adam, especially The Rock, is going to now be a great part of the DCU going forward. I think that's whether or not you like this movie or don't like this movie or don't even see this movie. I really think The Rock is going to be in a strong role for Black Adam going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see it. I haven't gotten a chance yet. My girls want to finish the Justice League first, so we got to do that. Do I tell you, man? While I've been gone, there's a lot of things, a lot of pop culture stuff that like I missed out on. So we're trying to finish Lord of the Rings right now. We got one more episode left.
Oh,
Um,
that's a good one.
I know. So we watched the second to last episode last night, and we can talk about that later. But yeah, it's pretty good. But now, after we finish Lord of the Rings, we got to go back. We were watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, so we watched the first three parts, and now we got to watch the other three parts. And once we catch up on that, then we'll probably hop on over to the theaters to check out Black Adam.
Want to make sure also we give a shout out to TJ Johnson for covering the last 2 weeks here on the show. Thank you so much for doing so. But yeah,
Thank
a
you.
lot to talk about when it comes to pop culture. When you're ready for it, we're here, my friend, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But before we go and head to the break, wanted to go ahead and finish out outline Ticket to Paradise, which was which was it did okay, 16 million, not exactly great. I mean, you can compare that to Smile and to Don't Worry Darling, and also even Halloween Kills. Those movies performed better in their first weekend, although although with George Clooney and Julia Roberts, they really kill it overseas. Still, it's actually on over $75 million overseas. I think that this movie, if it does become a profitable venture, it's because of everything done internationally.
You know what's funny is that this is like a movie that would have done really well in the late 90s.
I agree. Or even the 2000s.
Even the 2000s, yeah, like they don't make movies like this anymore. They just
Yeah,
they don't, and there is an audience for it, definitely, but
it's just not in the U.S. That's for sure.
yeah, and if they had any other actors, like main characters in this movie besides Julia Roberts and George Clooney, like there's no way it would have done really anything here.
And I think it just proves that, at least internationally, the rom com is not dead. I know that Netflix has a ton of rom coms. I mean, if you could say even the quality wise is not there, the Hallmark movies, though, are rom com based, and they still have a great marketplace and still have a great audience following it. So the rom com, I don't think, is dead. It just needs the right actors to go ahead and be able to connect with
Right.
an audience worldwide, including the US. But you can
Yeah.
see, at least internationally, Julia Roberts and George Clooney uh,
Yeah.
can still kill it for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I look at it too, like, speaking to the rom-com audience, I think that you have people going out to see the spectacle films because those are young kids, right? Kids and comic book fans, adults, and but the rom-com audience is mostly like, older women who probably still aren't like too keen to leave the house unless they have to. So, it's just a different it just shows like what the different demographics, how box office affects is affected by the different demographics of people going to see movies right now.
Last thing I want to touch on when it comes to the box office for this past weekend was, it's not a huge number by any stretch of the imagination. It's only 180,000 at the box office from four different venues. But the start for the Banshees of Inisherin, which is a great tale of two friends, of a friendship that's gone awry. And it has just a great cast involved with it. You got to go ahead and check it out. Just Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson do an amazing job. This movie has actually got a 90 on Metacritic right now. It's the highest rated movie of the year from what I see. And it is a movie that is already being talked about at the head of the class for the Oscars. Your thoughts on the Banshees of Inisherin?
When I originally saw the trailer for this movie, I was intrigued by it. Like the concept made zero sense to me, and they marketed it like a mixture between comedy and like a very dark horror like drama. And
This
I'm
seems like a Cohen movie for me, actually.
it did, yeah. And so now, like, I'm even more intrigued about this movie than I was before, and I want to watch it. I'm not going to go to the theaters to watch it, but it's definitely going to be something I'm going to be sitting on my couch to watch.
So, what are your thoughts out there on the box office battle this weekend with, of course, Black Adam, and of course, right behind it, well, far behind it, actually, the Ticket to Paradise for George Clooney and Julia Roberts, and also, as well, the debut of the Banshees of Inisherin, which, again, right now is one of the leading contenders for Oscar's Best Picture. Your thoughts on the box office shakeup for this weekend? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, before we hit the break, my friend, want to go ahead and cover just as much as I can before we hit the break. The death of G4. I know this is something that you mentioned last weekend around this time. It was announced that G4, the revival of G4, the much vaunted video game related channel, which in many ways in the 2000s, I guess, spearheaded or actually brought to the forefront a lot of things that we now have very commonplace that we see on YouTube and Twitch and many other things. They tried to go ahead and revive this after it's been off the air for quite some time, and it never really seemed to connect with an audience large enough to go ahead and sustain itself. I've been watching and monitoring it for months now, And this was something you could see coming a mile away because it was something that was very expensive to run. You had a virtually a company with about 100 people, 100 staff members involved. You had WWE stars you were bringing in. It's a very, very costly venture, and you were only getting mediocre YouTube numbers, Twitch numbers, and even a channel that you put out on Roku and all that at best. Your thoughts on this? I just think that there were a lot of factors working against it. I know that you said that there are other issues working against it, but for me, I think just when it came down to it, it's just the fact that this is a different age and there's so many different outlets for the same things that they were presenting that there was no need to go ahead and check out G4.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're, giving some thought to what you're saying. You are right about that. Like, you could go onto YouTube any day of the week at any time and find, exactly what they're doing on G4. I think a big issue is, like you said, like, this was not the right era for something like that. Like, think about it, G4 was originally marketed much like Spike TV, like it was marketed to men, right? It was marketed to men, and that was the demographic. But now you're putting, you have these hosts of these shows who are very like politically controversial on their social media pages, and they're calling out their audiences on things, and you just can't, I don't know. So people who are going back to G4, it's just not what they were expecting it to be, and I think that probably turned them off of that pretty quickly. But it's just, I don't know, it just is not. People look back fondly on stuff like that, but then again, like G4, the legacy that they've left behind, I think a lot of this stuff on YouTube exists because of G4.
Yes. Yes.
And so it left an impact before, but now they try to come back and do the same exact things they were doing before, and I don't think that was, um I don't think that was the best move for them. They didn't bring anything new to the table, and ultimately, I think that might have buried them.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that because the fact is back. And also the fact that the audience for G4 grew up and they have other things that they need to take care of in their lives. They have families, they have jobs, they have a life. They're not just behind a PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 at that point in time, or an Xbox or an Xbox 360 as in that time. They don't have the time to go ahead and devote to G4. And it
No.
just, like you said, it did things that you could see every single day on Twitch or you could see every single day on YouTube, and there was no need for a new audience to go back to it. You talked about the political stuff or as far as their opinions and whatnot. I really don't think that's a huge factor as far as that's concerned. I just think the fact is that what they were presenting is what you hit it right on the head. What they're presenting is what you can find every day before and now after G4. So I mean, when you have a company of 100 people, you can't just be putting out videos that are only doing 40, 50,000 views. For us, that's great. That's no problem because we're only 3 people when it
Yeah.
concerns the pop culture consoles. But when it concerns 100, you need to support it a lot more than what they were doing.
And this is not to say that there's no place for a video game network of some kind. I just don't think it belongs on television. I think
No,
there should be yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to have G4 as a streaming service, right? And be able to go back and watch old episodes of X Play and X Factor,
but
and
putting it on
even
Roku, that the Roku costs money. Being on these other outlets, one of these other stations that are on these free TV or semi-free outlets, those cost money.
yeah, well, even make it as like an Amazon Prime extension. There's a lot
Yeah.
of stations that do that, but you could do something like that and do it at like half the cost of what they're doing right now. Like, yeah, national broadcast is expensive. Like, don't you this was a foolish endeavor to begin with. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, I love this idea of G4 coming back." It just wasn't. It was a good idea, but it just didn't. One, it wasn't executed very well, and two, it was the cost. The cost was not did not outweigh the gain.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just a very disappointing effort by G4. It brought some of what we appreciated and liked, but then again, trying to go ahead and embrace a new audience for it, I just think it never did or never could because of the fact that again, this for most people was their dad's G4 or their mom's G4 or their uncle's G4 or their aunt's G4, and it really just didn't connect with that audience because the fact that the people that were watching it back in the day are doing different things, and the people that were trying to target it to are already seeing different things. Because why would they want to go ahead and check out what they're doing over what they're doing already on Twitch and YouTube, Critical Role, and any of the popular YouTube stars or Twitch stars
Yeah.
that are out there? There's just no reason to go ahead and necessitate watching G4.
Yeah, and like I said, the legacy they left behind is amazing, but it's also ironic that like the thing that shut them that's probably going to shut them down forever is the very thing that they helped the very movement that they helped create, right? Is all these gamers
Yeah,
on Twitch
the
and game
irony in that, my
reviewing
friend.
games. Exactly, exactly.
So, what are your thoughts out there on the death again of G4? Please let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, it is Rob Dolby with Game Time Sports Collectibles. We talk about the current state of the sports card marketplace after such a big boom the past couple years. Where do we stand? And are your trading cards, are your sports cards in danger of losing its value? We're going to talk about that we're going to talk about that after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to close out the shows, the Pop Culture Cosmos. Want to thank so much Rob Dolby with Game Time Sports Collectibles for stopping by in the program. Hope you can get a chance every now and then to stop by to talk sports cards with us. Also want to mention as well that I had a great time the other day here in Las Vegas. And if you're in Las Vegas, please go ahead and give a big shout out to some really good people as well that I at Game Day Sports Cards. At Game Day Sports Cards, they really helped me out with an issue. But if you're not here in Vegas, a great place to go as far as again is Game Time Sports Collectibles. So I really want to thank so much everybody out there that really want to thank Rob for stopping by on the program. But before we head on out, my friend, I want to talk some video games real quick. Mario+Rabbids, Sparks of Hopes. I mean, this is something that is going to go under the radar, but it's going to sell tens of millions of copies because it's one of the biggest. The previous iteration is one of the biggest games on the Nintendo Switch. I know that's hard for people to believe, but guess what? It's one of the biggest games for the Nintendo Switch, and it's not even a full Nintendo game. It's actually partially owned by I think Ubisoft, if I remember correctly. So, your thoughts on this also as well? Persona 5 Royale. Those two games actually debuted last week. They're actually doing very well right now. Solid reviews for both. We're going to talk about Gotham Knights in a second, but your thoughts on Persona 5 Royale, continuing the also under the radar greatness that is Persona, and also as well Mario+Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
Yeah, this is shaping up to be a busy month for gaming. But yeah, I'm Persona 5. I never had the chance. Like I remember when Persona 4 came out, and everyone was talking about it, what a great game it was. And I was like, oh, I'd like to play that, but I just wasn't at a point in my life where I had time to do it. Like I got Persona 5 coming out on Games Pass, and I'm probably gonna sit down and play that. But I still want to play Scorn. Like I downloaded that, and that's a game inspired by H.R. Geiger, and it looks really cool. I don't know. There's just a lot to sit down and play right now, plus God of War and all this stuff coming out. So it's going to be a little bit busier than I think we predicted it being, as far as this gaming season goes. But yeah, I'm excited to sit down and play, spend some time with Persona 5. There's so many things coming out. I don't know if I'm gonna have a chance to like play it all the way through before I have to move on to something else. But definitely excited at having the ability to play it is definitely a good thing for me because like I said, I've never had the chance to play something like that before.
Well, Persona, the whole series, I mean, it has a large contingent of fans. It's something that hasn't crossed over into the mainstream as much as I would hope. Even when the original Personas or the early Personas were coming out, it is still, though, a much beloved, very well received series that I think nobody should go ahead and ignore if you're a gamer out there. I also think that Mario+Rabbids at first is something that I think people kind of blew off, but gamers really know what they like. And Mario+Rabbids, if you take again at the look at some of the best selling games in the Nintendo Switch history, this is the original Mario+Rabbids is among them. So Ubisoft is, we've talked about Ubisoft, we've kind of ridiculed Ubisoft, and still it looks like something that is going to be a big seller. This is one of their biggest titles ever, and or this is the sequel to one of their biggest titles ever, and that's going to be only good things for Ubisoft and Nintendo.
Yeah, they really need this. Mario+Rabbids, like it still sells a ton of copies even
Mm-hmm.
today, and so seeing the Sparks of Hope come out, it appeals to. I personally am not a huge fan. I don't like the like tactical game style, but
Mm-hmm.
people love it still, and there are casual fans and hardcore fans, and it's just something that seems to reach across
Mm-hmm.
to different types of gamers, and I think that that's something that Ubisoft and the Switch needs right now, because the Switch isn't really putting anything out that people are really flocking to play, because there's so many other. They're kind of, it seems like they're fizzling out right now,
Yeah.
and this can only help them.
Well, I will say that it's going to be very interesting to see how those two titles lay out. I lay money on Mario+Rabbids Sparks of Hope doing very well for the Nintendo Switch, because right now we still need a lot of games to go ahead and have a choice on at the store. I think Mario+Rabbids Sparks of Hope is actually going to be doing very well this holiday season. Plus, I also think that Persona 5 Royale, if the gaming community stays behind it, I think will also do well. I mean, the previous Persona sold very strong for a long amount of time. So I really think that there's going to be a lot of good things coming from both those titles. But before we head on out, my friend, I do want to go ahead and mention the disastrous start for Gotham Knights. I know TJ Johnson and I touched on it on last week's show in regards to the fixed 30 frames per second rate, which is a big uproar in the community. How a game in 2022 cannot even be 60 frames per second, which is just absolutely ridiculous. God of War 5 is actually going to have an option for you to get 120 frames per second, yet somehow this game, and it's all the bugs and all the bad reviews and everything that's gone on, can't even get past 30. Your thoughts on Gotham Knights, man?
I wasn't really expecting this game to be good. It was delayed a ton of times, and it didn't really seem like they had a lot of confidence in it. It was trying to mimic what Rockstar did with the Arkham series, and it seemed like it was going to fall short. Just because with the delays and all the, having to do the tweaks and all
Yeah.
that, coming out the gate, it just didn't seem like it was going to be a great game. And who knows, maybe, a few months from now, it could be a good game, but
Yeah, but
it's
you
just,
can't be doing that, man.
you
How many
can't,
times we've
right.
seen the Cyberpunk 2077, No Man's Sky? How many times you can repeat that formula, Fallout 76, where the game stinks right off the bat and you expect,
Mhm.
oh, we're going to work on it over the next 2, 3 years, and we'll have enough of an audience to go ahead and make it a real thing.
No, well, I mean, look at Avengers, right? Like that game was bad coming out the gate. Now, allegedly, it's a great game, but nobody really cares enough to play it. So
Yeah. It
it's
doesn't work every time. Every game cannot be No Man's Sky.
yeah. So I would rather them have like really taken an extra like 2 years on this game to put it out and make something good, as
Yeah.
opposed to rushing out a kind of crappy game. And
Yeah.
so I am not going to be playing this one. Like if it's ever on sale for like $10, I'll probably pick it up. But I'm looking at it's a $70 price point, and that's just with all the bad reviews and negative press it's gotten. I don't feel like it's worth my time.
What are your thoughts out there on the disappointing release of Gotham Knights? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, before we head on out and before I turn it over to you for some great thoughts on Hasbro and Hockeyland, did want to mention House of the Dragon episode 10 falls this weekend. By now, if you're listening, if it's already dropped, and a lot of you a lot of you have already caught it. We've already seen the major things that have gone on with it as far as the dragon battle and all that good stuff. And of course, House of the Dragon got to have a dragon battle and the preparation for war yet to come. I know that Rhaenyra has had a lot of issues sending out her children to go ahead and do some dirty work, and unfortunately, in the case of Eric Cargill, doesn't look like it's going to be very good for him because he was in the middle of the Dragon War between him and Princess Targaryen. Prince Targaryen. So your thoughts on this, my friend? It ends up again with the thought with the it ends up with Rhaenyra planning for war and hitting her home as far as losing one of her children, or possibly more. I don't know. We'll see. But your thoughts on this, my friend? Big House of the Dragon battle coming up to close out the series. I thought overall it was a good series. It checked the boxes. I didn't like as much as Lord of the Rings because I've gotten a lot of flack from TJ on that, but I still, again, I'm going to hold to my dear and say, you know what? I thought Lord of the Rings pulled it out, but again, very solid outing. Did what it needed to do, got everybody's attention, and everybody who loves Game of Thrones loves it even more.
It's funny. I'm kind of in the same boat with you, except like with my wife. My wife likes Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon better than Lord of the Rings, but I like Lord of the Rings better. But I do feel like this, House of the Dragon was really satisfying. It wasn't. I was expecting it to be like a lesser version of Game of Thrones, but it's kind of proving to be, in my opinion, a little bit better than Game of Thrones. Like they've learned lessons from what Game of Thrones did and kind of
Mm-hmm.
improved upon the formula. We're still 2 episodes behind, but I love it. Like I will keep watching it. I hope it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go on for more than 5 seasons, but like it did what it set out to do, and I respect that.
What are your thoughts out there on the final episode of the season for Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon? Did you like the dragon battle that took place? Did you like the twists and turns? Did you like the ultimate decision that Rhaenyra has to go ahead and plan for battle, and an impending battle for season 2 will begin, for the fight for the different houses begins, because it just seems like so much is going on, and just always a good thing. It's always a good thing when it concerns the House of the Dragon. So please let us know your thoughts on Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Pop Culture Cosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, but you had a chance before we go on out to talk about some stuff that you checked out with Hasbro, and of course, a movie that was dropped on your lap in Hockeyland. So share me your thoughts, my friend. As the NHL season has started, Hockeyland seems to fit right in. Your thoughts on Hockeyland and what's going on with Hasbro before we head on out.
So Hockeyland is a it's a breathtaking uh okay, sorry, let me rephrase that. Hockeyland is a very beautifully filmed documentary. Just there's something about that, that climate, that culture around the upper part of the country. It was very beautifully filmed. Like the scenery was amazing. The way that they captured the town and everyone in it was very well done. I mean, the camera spoke leagues where words didn't. The movie itself, I would say, is probably in my top 10 documentaries of like the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I do have some beefs with it though. Like I love the fact that there's not a lot of like great hockey documentaries out there, and I think that this definitely scratched that itch. My beef with it though is that it was hard to keep track of what players were with what teams. So
Mm-hmm.
that it tells a story of these two rival schools and their hockey teams going up against each other, and it talks about like how if these kids don't go to the NHL or go to play minor league hockey, they usually end up working in the mines with their parents and all that. And you get that struggle, you get the fear that these kids have of having that be their fate. And so you do cling to, you are emotionally attached in that aspect. But looking at something like you go on like NBC, like Texas 6, or really any other sports documentary out there, or documentary series out there, they tend to follow just one team, and it's easier for you to like keep track of who's who, and follow their journey and their development over the course of the documentary or docu series. This one, they're following two different teams, so it's hard to keep track of who's on what team and like who is who, because they kind of like they kind of look the same, and their stories are kind of the same. Some people have other things that they're dealing with that certain other players don't. But so that was the one thing, like, I think that this would have been an amazing docuseries instead of just a documentary. There's too much story to tell and
Hmm.
too many kids to follow for this just to be a 2-hour movie. You know, if it would have been like a docuseries, it would have been flawless. But just because there's so many moving pieces and it's so hard to keep track of a lot of it, it does not get a perfect 10 for me. I think it sits at like an 8.
There you go. Really
But
solid outing, though. Highly
yeah,
recommended.
yeah, let me, let me just backtrack for a second. Like, it was an amazing movie. Like, it was great. It just,
Mhm.
there were some things that could have been different that would have made it like a perfect 10 in my book.
Before we head on out, my friend Hasbro, you wanted to go ahead and talk about some things headed for store shelves and some things that are getting your interest on Hasbro, a company that has suffered because of poor earnings and their stock value has gone down, but hopefully a holiday season will turn around. Your thoughts on Hasbro?
Yeah, so Hasbro, they're coming out with all these new things. There's like reprints of Power Rangers, reprints of Star Wars toys, reprints of GI Joe stuff, and all that stuff looks really cool. My one big problem with Hasbro right now is that they have so many things. So like these stores are stocking a lot of things, but they're not stocking some of like the more uh I don't know, they don't have things for everybody. Like, you can't go to Walmart and you can't and get like the Zord Ascension things that they're coming out with, and the other some of the other great collectibles that they offer on the Hasbro Pulse app. That, and that makes me wonder, like, how many times do you think they're going to be able to just like repackage and reproduce as special editions the same toys over and over again before people kind of get tired of collecting stuff like that?
Well, we'll see what happens because Hasbro needs it. Hasbro needs it right now. Hasbro needs something to go ahead and inject some life because,
Right.
as a company, they are suffering after a very poor earnings call and a share price that has on the stock market devalued greatly over the past 6 months. So they need something to go
Yeah.
ahead and infuse some life into a company that has grown very big but needs a lot of help.
But here's what I'm saying though, like, I would much rather them put out one really good toy line and keep pumping, effort into that over the course of 6 months than over the course of 6 months come out with, like, 10 different toy lines from the same property.
What are your thoughts out there on the future of Hasbro? Please let us know. And if you get a chance, please check out Hockeyland. Gets a very strong review from Josh. Is it Class Action Park? I'm not sure quite that much, but still a very good review. 8 out of 10 for Josh as far as Hockeyland is concerned. You know, we always have a place for Class Action Park. Can't,
Always.
yeah, always, always. But what are your thoughts out there on Hockeyland and also as well the future of Hasbro? Please share us your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. Can I thank you as always for returning to us and talking a bunch of pop culture. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
No, I mean, back to Hockey Land. Make sure you check it out. Like, support these smaller films because there's a lot of great stories being told in these, the smaller cinema as opposed to the big budget stuff. Like, make sure you show those guys some love.
Absolutely. Showing the little guys some love. Just these little small films, the independent films. Make sure you go ahead and once you hear about these, please go ahead and support them because every single dollar is so important to them and so important to what they can do in the future in making great films. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the pop culture cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great